Everybody, and welcome to this session as part of the Black Country Business Festival, and it's called Fund Your Creative Project, and we're going to be looking at some top tips on how to approach the funding journey. My name's Yvonne Gregory and I'm the fundraising manager for Creative Black Country, and at CBC we work with communities in the Black Country to help develop new creative projects with local people in the places where they live. Unfortunately, my co-host, Matt, is unable to join us today, so I'm afraid it's just me, but I'm going to do my best to make this as informative as possible, but also informal. So do pitch in if you've got a question. My background is in doing lots and lots of different roles in the arts sector, and I fell into fundraising like people do because there was a need, and you'll find this whatever background you come from. If you want to work in the creative sector, you've got to kind of get the funding, you've got to get the money from somewhere. So I've been with CBC for about 18 months, and we're funded by the Arts Council as a Creative People and Places programme. But part of that, we have to raise our match funding. So that's my role. And I've also got a wider remit to help support other organisations and artists in the Black Country to help support the whole sector, really. I've worked as a fundraiser for over 20 years. So I've got quite a lot of experience in how things kind of go round in cycles. And CBC gets most of its money, like I say, from the Arts Council, but also from trusts and foundations, and also through partnerships with businesses and partnerships with local authorities as well. That's the main part of our funding. So that's me. So fundraising, if you're just starting out, it can be a little bit daunting, and it's difficult to know where to start. But you don't need a degree or any certain qualifications. Skills that you develop as you go along, yes, but you don't need qualifications. You don't need to speak in art speak. You should keep things nice and simple. Matt's written here, it can be a rewarding creative process, honest. And that's why sometimes it doesn't feel that way, but it's great to be part of the process, and when you receive funding for something, it is the most rewarding thing. You just need a great idea and your passion to shine through. That's what really, really helps. So if we're talking about Arts Council, they have a new 10-year strategy called Let's Create. And you can find lots of information online about Let's Create. And there's also a video as well, which we're going to share after this. We were going to share it as part of this, but it seemed to cause some tech issues. So we'll circulate it afterwards. And they've set up new principles. I'm just going to skip over the video, and outcomes for this 10-year strategy. And if you get a chance to read, if you can read the Let's Create document, it's actually it sounds horrible. Why would you want to read an Arts Council strategy? But actually, they've done it very well. It's quite easy to read and understand. And I think it's good news for everybody, because it's far more inclusive and wide-ranging. If you look at some of these outcomes, it's like everyone can develop their and express creativity. It's talking about villages, towns and cities thrive through a collaborative approach to culture and being innovative and collaborative. So it's trying to move away, I think, from that elitist kind of notion that the arts can, and perception that the arts sometimes has, is that actually everybody can be involved in cultural life, which I think is good news for everyone. They also have these investment principles, which everything has to sign up to, but don't get too bogged down in that. Don't worry too much about that. So where to start? I don't know whether anybody's been onto the Grantium portal before. Arts Council have a portal where you have to apply through their portal called Grantium. And it's not the easiest application portal to use. I will be perfectly honest. This process isn't the easiest. It's not a really quick process. It's a planned process. But what we've heard back from other community groups that have been through this is that it actually helps you formulate your project. By answering these questions, it will help you further down the line with your project. So you're going to click onto project grants, for example, and the screen looks a bit like this. And then you have to do 3 steps to applying. First of all, there's a quiz to see if you're eligible. And then you need to read all the guidance, and there's lots and lots and lots and lots of guidance. So some of it you will really need, and some of it you won't. But sometimes you can ask a question in the search, and it brings you up with exactly what you need. But there's quite a lot of help and information there. In order to apply, you need to register on Grantium, and you need to set up an applicant profile. And that means you need to give some details, and whatever name you put in the applicant profile is the name of the bank account that your funding would be paid into. And that's quite important. So if you're an individual artist, or if you're an organisation, you just need to match, you need to make sure that the name of the applicant is the name on the bank account. Okay. And there's also a customer service help email, which we can share with you actually at the end. And there's a little glitch sometimes on the eligibility quiz that you go round and you answer the questions, and sometimes you keep going round answering the questions. And if this happens to you, don't panic, because it happens to a lot of people, including myself. And it just means you need to click where you think you need to click. You don't need to click somewhere else to finish the eligibility quiz, so that once you're eligible, then that part finishes, and then you can apply. The other thing is about your applicant profile is that it goes off to be validated, and that can take up to 10 working days. So if you can't start your application until you've been through these first 3 steps of applying. So give yourself a bit of time, is my first piece of advice. So project grants, they are changing as well. When we set this session up, we didn't realise that actually next month project grants are going to change. The guidance hasn't come out yet, so this is what this is the process at the moment. I don't think the process is going to change. A couple of these questions might change, but we don't know what that is yet. So at the moment, and until the 20th of November, there are 2 tiers. You can apply up to £15,000, which is a 10-week turnaround for a decision. They're running late at the moment. It's normally 6 weeks, but they're very busy. If it's over 15,000, it's up to a 16-week turnaround. So you need to factor that in to your planning process. After the 20th of November, small grants will go up to £30,000. So that's quite a change. So, and there's different levels of questions. For example, you get more words to explain about your project if it's a bigger grant than if it's a smaller grant. As I say, the good news is that project grants are open to individuals, so individual artists, community groups and cultural organisations. So it's very broad. You have to apply through Grantium, but never, never, never write your application in the Grantium portal. And that this would be my advice for any application portal. Do it outside, do it in Word first, and transport it into the portal just before you're going to apply. Because the portal can glitch sometimes. You need to make sure you keep saving work, because you might want to, you might lose things. So it's always better to work in a different format and then transport it just before you're going to submit. We've got some application templates which we will forward to you afterwards. So here are some top tips. Yeah, reading the guidance is vital, because there is no point in applying for something or going through the application process if you don't fit into the guidance. It's the number one reason why things are declined, and this goes across Arts Council, it goes across trusts and foundations. The biggest reason for being declined is that it didn't fit in with the criteria, it didn't fit in with the guidance. So you can always save yourself time by reading the guidance first. Another tip is to write in bullet points, particularly in Grantium. You have tight word and character counts, so you don't need to write in lovely creative prose. Bullet points saying exactly what you're going to do can be really, really helpful. And on that note, writing as clearly as you can is great, because the person at the end who's receiving and reading your application might not know about your art form, or don't presume that they know what you're talking about. So you need to explain it. I call it like an idiot's guide. And sometimes I start the answer to the question, the answer with the last part of the question. If it's saying, please tell us why you are applying, then just start in your head, I am applying because. That helps you formulate what you're trying to say. If you can confirm as much as you can, that's great. And also be realistic, because it's so tempting to go, oh yes, our audience is going to be 3,000 people. But if that doesn't look proportionate to what you're delivering, that will be flagged up quite quickly. And don't set yourself unrealistic targets that you're going to have to evaluate yourself against. So be realistic. Yeah, getting someone else to help you as well and proofread, because everyone misses something. So it's really hard to do it as a solo project. Have somebody else that you can just borrow to have a read through. Yeah, and also it's great to hear we will do this instead of we hope to. Just be confident. Cut out waffle if you don't need it. You work on Grantium, you haven't really got many words anyway, so try and be as concise as possible. And then when you might have a project or an idea, we need to also think about that idea needs to be funding ready. So you need to ask yourself some questions to make it ready to be fundable. And that starts with why. Why are you doing it? Who does it benefit? And what is the impact that it will have? Do people want this? Do people need it? Are you looking at a new way of working? Are you opening up access for people with limited engagement? Are you creating opportunities for people who wouldn't normally have them? Those kinds of questions. And we can have a look at that in a different way with the golden circle. Always starting with why. Why do you want to do it? Then how do you want to do it? And then actually, what will you do? It's really good process to go through to help you formulate in your head how your project is going to work. So I've just been talking about, is it funding ready? And as a fundraiser, this is what I'm always interested in. Sometimes if you're working with a creative director or an artist and they've got this fantastic idea, but it just isn't ready because it hasn't answered these questions. And that is, as a fundraiser, that is part of the role of translating that fabulous artistic vision into something that can be applied for money to make it happen. So these are some of the questions that you can ask yourself as well as part of the process, clearly defining what you're going to be doing. And I'm going to talk a bit about budgets in a moment, but have you got any funding from anywhere else? That's called match funding. Do you have any support that's not financial, so not money, but are you using a space that somebody's given you a reduced rate for a rehearsal, for example? Is somebody offering their skills or expertise to you at a reduced rate or for free? That's called in-kind support, and that can be used really well actually to demonstrate some match funding and some support for your project. You'll need an activity plan, and I'll talk about that again in a moment as well, but just have a think about what your milestones might be, and always work backwards from the end. So you've got to factor in how much time the Arts Council need to make a decision. You can't start your project until you've had that decision. Because if you've started it, they can't fund retrospectively. So if you said, oh, well, I've already started my rehearsals, then you can't, you know, if you've got some dancers doing rehearsals, but the Arts Council haven't given you the decision, you can't then pay them through the Arts Council funding. So a lot of preparation in advance, you know, as far as you can in advance, and working backwards is really helpful. We've got a project definition sheet as well that we'll also send to you at the end, which helps kind of answer some of these questions. So Matt works for Black Country Touring, and he just put a couple. These are like a couple of examples of a Black Country Touring project, and how he would approach thinking about the funding for it. So why put on live theatre in your venue? So there might be a lack of opportunity in those particular neighbourhoods. And what does it bring? It makes it a more vibrant and exciting place to live. It can bring something new to people who already are users, or it might attract new people or explore different stories from different heritage. So those are some of the points that you could do. That this is for their example, but you'll have similar things for your own project, asking yourself why. So how will you do it? This is a really good point as well. If you can consult with the people who you're going to be making this creative project or arts project for, because they're the beneficiaries. If you can demonstrate that you have spoken to them and consulted with them, that also strengthens your application. You need to think about how it will make the most impact. So is it an exhibition? Is it a performance? Is it a festival? You know, the best way to have the most impact. What expertise do you bring? There is a question in Arts Council about this. What's your track record? What expertise do you bring? But also, what else might you need from somebody else, another partner, or some extra capacity to actually deliver your project? And then what are the risks and the hurdles that you might have to overcome? It's good also to think about this in advance. You know, it could be a local issue or a financial issue, but just have a think about that. It might be a time issue, a capacity issue. Have a little think about that as well, because it's also good to keep that in your mind. And then to talk about actually what will happen, what will you do? And sometimes we read applications from people who are you know, going through the process, and they say, oh, please will you have a look at my application? And it sounds absolutely lovely. It sounds wonderful. But you might be I'm asking myself, what actually is it? What will happen? So you need to really, really spell this out. So if it's theatre shows, how many will you do? If it's a programme, you know, what are the themes? What's going to happen in that if it's a festival programme? You know, what different art forms might you be engaging with? How many people do you think will attend? Again, be realistic. Are you going to involve volunteers? And where do you expect your audience to come from as well? There is another question about reaching audiences in the project grants application. So you need to think about that. about your marketing and your communications, and where, you know, do you know, this also goes back to your consultation. Have you consulted with people? Do you know that people want your particular project? So I'm just going to take a sip of a drink before we talk about budgets. Now, nobody ever wants to do this part of a project planning process, because it's seen as the boring bit or the complicated bit. But as a fundraiser, this is where I would start really early on, scoping out the budget. So when you're looking at your project and you're thinking, oh yeah, so I'm going to do this many workshops and then a performance. You need to, when you're scoping out your projects, you need to be scoping out the budget as well. Not in a detailed way, but you can just kind of say, if I'm doing 5 workshops and I'm having 2 artists at each workshop, and I'm going to pay each artist this amount of money, then you can start putting that together. Because if you go ahead and just work out what your project without the budget alongside it, you won't know, for example, whether your project is under £15,000 or over £15,000. And you might want to scale up or scale down as you go. So I think this is really, really important part of your planning process. Again, don't do it on Grantium. There's a whole page of inputting. There's actually a few pages of inputting your budget into Grantium, but do it on an Excel sheet first and work it out. And if you can, your own Excel sheet, work it out, use the headings that are in the Grantium form. So you'll have an income sheet, and that's things like what you're asking the Arts Council for, how much you're requesting, any earned income, so that's from ticket sales, or if you're going to sell paintings or whatever. If you've got local authority funding or other public fundings, that might be lottery. If you've got any private income, that's the things like trusts and foundations, or individual donations, and then support in kind. And then you the support in kind is the non-financial support, but you need to give it a value. So when you're putting your budget together, start with what you're going to spend, what you're going to need. Don't ask for things that you don't need, but start with what you're going to need, and then look at how you're going to get the income to realise that. In Grantium as well, what it will do is you will have to input every line under those headings. You click at the bottom to add a new line, and it brings it up in the table above. So you can't just upload your budget as an Excel sheet. You have to input it, every line, into Grantium. There's a lot of that in Grantium. So your income, as I've said, I've just read out the headings. In expenditure, so what you're going to spend, there are headings like your artistic and creative costs. So that is everything, your delivery costs. What is it going to cost to do your project? And you'll need to break that down, you know, so many days at so many pounds times by so many artists. There's a heading under making your work accessible. So that might be that you might engage some lovely BSL interpreters like Alicia and Rachel to make your work accessible. But it might be something like just having a ramp at the beginning of at the front of a venue. It might be having volunteers or extra staff for people who might need extra support. Anything like that is making your work accessible. And you've got developing your organisation or people. So that's around training. Are you going to need any training to deliver your project? Marketing and developing audiences. What's the budget for that? Are you doing flyers? Are you doing social media? Who is doing that as well? And how are you going to pay them? Overheads, so that's your heating, insurance, and that might be, if you're an organisation, not so much if you're an individual, but if you're an organisation, that might be between 5 to 8% of your project costs, your overheads. So just something to keep in mind. And then you've got personal access costs. There's a line in for that. That's quite specific for people who need additional support to attend, or as an artist, if you have a personal assistant and that they need to be paid. That's quite a specific line. And then you've got support in kind. So when you're doing your budget, your support in kind appears in the income and in the expenditure because it needs to balance. So when you're doing your income line, what you're requesting from Arts Council, plus any match funding, plus any support in kind, that should come to the total of your expenditure total. And your expenditure must include your support in kind. They'll need to balance. And when you put this into Grantium, it will do it for you. But make sure that on your Excel sheet, before you start uploading it to Grantium, that you've got a balanced budget. And if you want any extra help with that, we can help you, because sometimes it's a bit confusing. And I was going to say something else about your request. No, I've forgotten it. But yeah, your match funding, you don't need match funding. They're not saying that you have to have match funding, but if you have, it will definitely strengthen your application. So anything that you can put in, and any support in kind, is really helpful. You can, if you're an organisation, you can also say that you will put in, you know, say you want to put in £500 of the organisation's money into this project, you can do that as well. That counts as match funding. Okay, project plans. So as I said at the beginning, you'll be asked to set out your activity plan. And there's a section in the application, and you've got 1,500 characters to explain your plans and preparations. So you've got a bit of narrative, and you've also got a table. Again, if you start your table either as a Word or an Excel sheet, under these headings, you've got start date, end date, the activity task, the activity or the task, the details of it, and then the task lead, because those are the headings in Grantium. And then you'll have to, again, add line by line, unfortunately, your activity plan. You can't just upload the document. So it doesn't need to be too detailed because of that. So you can say in one line, workshops for a week, instead of writing down every day's workshops. That will help you. But I would definitely include your planning meetings in this activity plan, what you're planning, what needs to happen before your activity starts, and also what will happen afterwards, your evaluation, and factor in what date you might get the decision. So there's no point put in your activity plan saying we're going to start this on the 1st of March if you're not going to hear back from the Arts Council to the 15th of March. There's just, again, keeping that in your head. But because you've got to put it in line by line, just try and group things together, so that it doesn't take up too much of your time, because that can be quite time consuming. And in fact, for the whole of Grantium, my advice would be give yourself a day to transport your application from Word or Excel, wherever you have it, into Grantium, because you'll find that when you transport it, the character counts are slightly different, so you might need to tweak, and you will kind of put things in line by line. So this is just my last little slide, and then I'm going to go back and just see if there's any questions that you guys may have. But what next? Look out for the new guidance that's coming up. There's help available on the customer services email. Myself and Matt are also offering some one-to-one support for up to 30 minutes. We're doing 2 each. And also the Arts Council, we've got a few spare places. You can have a one-to-one session with the Arts Council as well. So I'm going to stop sharing. If you want to put your cameras back on, now I've stopped waffling on, and just see how I'd just like to hear, was that useful? Does anybody have any particular questions? Because we have about 15 minutes left. You know, is anyone starting a project at the moment?
I'd just like.
Oh, shall we start with Deb and then go to James?
Hi there. I'd just like to start by saying I've found it so informative, and thank you. We're at a very, very early stage. We kind of have some ideas, and we also have a community group that's approached us for support. So we almost have a target audience already, and hopefully the work that we do could then be used to widen their reach. It's a mum's mental health group, but we've got kind of so many ideas for different kinds of community support. So yes, this has been so useful. As I say, we're literally just at the discussion stages, and Erica, who's also here, is part of that. But yeah, a really lovely, concise, very, very useful overview. So thank you. I kind of feel more confident in going forward now. So yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
Good. And just to say on that front of confidence, it is, yeah, don't be discouraged. We did a session last week with one of our community groups that we've worked with for a few years and supported, and they've just finished their project. They got some funding earlier in the year. They got £15,000, and they were turned down first time. So, but they actually said that this process helped them really form their project, and so that when they actually came to do it, there were no issues. It just went really smoothly. So yeah, keep going and get, there is advice out there. So, and we're happy to help. So so good luck with it, Deb. And if you want to book a one-to-one session, then please do. We're happy to help.
Thank you so much.
That's okay. James.
Hiya. Yeah, just a question about what you were saying earlier about like making sure that your project matches what people in the community you're looking to serve want and that sort of thing. How would you suggest like starting those conversations if like there's not that much, if we're hoping to reach communities that we're not necessarily a part of? What's a good way of like, yeah, getting in and beginning those sort of conversations?
Okay, so can I ask where are you based?
We're Birmingham at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah, but I grew up in Dudley, the Black Country, so we're looking specifically at the Black Country as an area of engagement for theatre.
Okay, so well, the good thing about Creative Black Country is we have creative advisors in Devon. I don't know where you're based, but we have a creative advisor based in each area. So in Dudley, we've got Laura, and we can send you her details, because the best thing to do is to have a conversation with someone who's working in the area. And all our creative advisors are embedded in the Black Country. So they know the groups, they've got connections with the groups, they know the artistic landscape of what's happening, and so it's really a good idea. I don't know whether, Gavin, you can put Laura's email into the chat, and then you could maybe set up and have a conversation with her first of all. The other thing that we do, if you want to test out an idea in the Black Country, you've got a creative idea and you want to test it out, we offer advice and also micro grants of like £500 through the creative communities strand of our work. So that might be something that you might want to do beforehand, and that can be testing exactly what you're saying. You can test that out then and say, oh, actually we've done that consultation, we've done that testing, we've engaged with those communities, and we know they want this kind of work. So, and then that will help you then when you go on to apply it to the Arts Council. And the other thing, just to say, is that most areas, I don't know whether most people are based in the Black Country but it doesn't matter. Most people have councils of voluntary services that are in their area. So at CBC, we work in partnership with all the councils of voluntary service in our area. So again, in Dudley, there is a small groups advisor called Becky. Again, we can put you in touch with her, because we work very closely with them. So they have access to like thousands of community groups. And that's why CBC works so well, because we have obviously we're a creative people and places program, so place is really, really important to us. Everything is place-based and really local. So, and that's how we do it. We work through with the councils of voluntary services, and they have also got people to help with funding. If you can, I would sign up to their newsletters. They've got lots of funding advice, and yeah, they're a really good source to use as well. Deb, where were you based? Are you in the Black Country?
Yeah, we're in Briley Hill.
Oh, okay. So, okay, the same. You're in Dudley as well, so that's great. I don't know whether you've spoken to Laura.
Not to Laura. We've had a brief conversation with Becky.
Okay.
And we're based at Holbush Community Gardens, and we're actually volunteering for Integrated Plus there with one of their social prescribing groups. So yeah, we'll kind of follow that link up.
Okay. Yeah, that would be my starting point. Okay. As I say, because you get so much help and support, and they really know the area well. So yeah, that would be one of the starting points.
Fab.
I don't know whether anybody else has any other questions or comments. I can't see anybody else. Theo, oh, Helen. Oh, hello.
I was just saying I'm here, but I don't have any questions. Thank you, though.
Oh, okay. Where are you? Where are you based?
I'm Stourbridge, so I'm a visual artist myself. So I'm a painter, and I also run an art group called Backroom Art. That offers lessons to just anybody above the age of 16, really. So at the moment, age ranges from kind of mid-30s to 83, I think. So quite a big age range. But I was just looking at trying to get an exhibition for them, really, just to promote their work, really, because I think it would be a lovely opportunity for them to do it, you know. So yeah, just looking at things like that, really.
So again, we seem to have a lot of Dudley Borough people here today.
Yeah, used to be, obviously.
yeah, which is great. I'm in Stourbridge as well. Again, it's Laura's the creative advisor for the Dudley Borough, and you know she can help advise you. She only works part-time, so if you do get in touch with her, don't worry if it takes a bit of time to get back. But there's a lot of stuff happening in Dudley at the moment, actually, as part of Dudley Creates. Yeah. If you look on our website, there's lots of different events. And also we've got Creative Connections, which is it's a call out for commissions that they're not actually due to lockdown now. Just thinking that the idea came from lockdown. We had Creative Connections last year, were to keep people connected, keep creative projects going during lockdown. But now I think they're more open. But I think you can apply for up to £2,000. Thank you, Gavin. He's just put it in the chat again. So there's opportunities through that as well. Again, obviously it's connecting those communities. That's what CVC is all about. So yeah, have a look at those as well.
Yeah, just a question like in relation to someone else actually. So I know it was actually my husband who did a project during lockdown to keep musicians connected, and he was it went really well, but he was going to do the project again this year. Can you apply for funding if you've done it? Does that make sense? If you've already done it, but you're going to do it like again? I don't know.
I don't know. We'd have to read the
that's fine. It was just the
guidance on that.
Yeah.
I think if it was, it would need to be some kind of development.
Yeah.
I don't think we'd commission something that's happened in the same way. Yeah. It would need to be developed. But all the on the website is all the questions and answers and the eligibility criteria. So have a look at that, because we try and offer opportunities for our local artists, you know, as much as we can.
Super, thank you.
That's okay. And the other thing that we do have as well, we have a funding network across the Black Country, which is for anybody who is looking for funding for creative work. So you don't necessarily need to be an artist or a creative organisation, but if you are delivering creative work, then you can join the funding network, and I can send details about that as well afterwards. So look out, you're going to get quite a few links and things to look through to hopefully help you and support you on your way. I can see that we're kind of nearly out of time, but I just wondered if anybody had any other questions. Yeah, Deb? You're on mute there, Deb.
Sorry, just with regard to the two smaller, the Creative Connections and Creative Communities, would they be, if we applied for those, could they be part of the match funding to then, or is it if you get one you don't go for the other, or?
So they're two different things, and I think that yes, you can use your Creative Communities little micro grant as match funding. The Creative Connections is a different thing because it's like a commission to actually deliver a project. So, okay. So I mean, it could be part of a bigger project. I don't know, because I'm not on the kind of criteria panel for that, but I would say not for the Creative Connections, because they are commissions to deliver a certain project.
Okay, and just on the Creative Communities, what's the general time scale for that? You know, you said the other maybe 10 weeks or 16 weeks. Is there a similar time scale for the Creative Communities, the micro grant?
So we don't, that's a rolling programme, there's no deadlines, and it depends how formulated, I suppose, your idea is. Because you need to speak to Laura to go through that process, and then it isn't too long to get a decision back, because that's just in CBC, so it's not a big process like it is with the Arts Council. We have to wait in weeks and weeks. So yes, that the best thing to do though is have a chat with Laura, and she'd advise you. That's exactly what she would advise you on.
Great, thank you.
And I've seen that Gavin has put in into the chat, if you wouldn't mind copying that link for the survey, and if you wouldn't mind completing that survey for us, because it helps us informs future sessions like this to make sure that they're relevant. It also helps us report back to our funders, and you guys on your funding journeys will know about this, that we have to report back. Part of the funding journey is, getting the money is one part of the process, then delivering your project is another part of the process, and then a further part of the process is reporting back on what you have delivered and how things went. And so if you can fill in our survey, that just helps us report back to our funders, who are the majority of the Arts Council. So thank you for joining me this morning, and I'm sorry you've just had to listen to me and you didn't get Matt's insight as well, but I hope it was useful. Please do email me or get in touch at info@creativeblackcountry.co.uk, and then the email will find itself to me. Sign up for a one-to-one session if that helps. Get in touch with your creative advisor in your area for some help and advice. And thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much.